Larimar is a rare form of pectolite, which was discovered in the 1970s and is only found in the Dominican Republic. It has an extraordinary blue appearance similar to the color of the ocean in tropical areas. The name Larimar comes from a combination of Larissa and Mar, and was given to the stone by a Dominican who named the stone after his daughter Larissa and Mar, the Spanish word for sea. Its powers are believed to help us view events from a different perspective. It softens, enlightens, and heals in a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual way. It represents peace and clarity, radiating healing and love energy. It is recommended for people who are stressed. This is Life Master Brian Wall with my second YouTube chess video. I've been writing about chess for 30 years in the Colorado Chess Informant, which is a state magazine. Chess Horizons, which is the Massachusetts State Chess Magazine. I have over 250,000 hits at wolverine.com, my webpage. And I have 600 members of Brian Walt Chess at yahoogroups.com. I also write for Chessville, which is a chess email magazine, and my column is called Off the Wall. And I've sold 600 copies of How to Play Chess Like an Animal. My co-author, Anthea Carson, loves Greco games. This is a game Greco Anonymous 1620. Black schemes to win the rook in the corner. White counterattacks. Now, black blunders, but, this is 400 years ago. And we have a 8-move checkmate. I'm about to show you a famous game. This is called the Pearl of Zandvoort. That's a Dutch town where they played a world championship match in 1935. White is Max Erva. Black is Alexander Alyekin. And white will go down a rook and still win the game. And this was published in all the Dutch newspapers. It's claimed that Alekhine was drinking, I don't know, during this specific game, but in some games in this match it was said that he couldn't even barely stand up. And in the last game, Erva made a very famous statement. He said, "I am prepared to draw at any point." That's where White's down a rook. Now he's down the exchange, and he's got some pawns for it. And at this point, Erva is clearly winning, and he wraps it up nicely with a nice knight fork. After I posted my first chess YouTube video, Shattering the Scheveningen, everyone asked me to post some more. I couldn't figure out which one to choose from after 30 years of writing about chess. But my task was made easier because I was recording these in Chris Peterson's apartment. And this is Chris Peterson's best game. My first video was about Chris's roommate Robert Ramirez, who lasted 19 moves against me. And in this game, Peterson's opponent James Kolbaki lasts 19 moves against Chris. I did an email in 2006 about this game, and I called it the Larimar of Laramie, a takeoff on the Pearl of Zandvoort. I was present when this game was played, which was the 2006 Wyoming Open in Laramie, Wyoming. I won the tournament and the trophy, and I put it to good use. Instead of Laurel and Hardy, this game was more like Laurel versus Hardy. Chris Peterson was 19 years old, 1660 rated player. He's 6'2", lanky with blonde hair and hazel eyes. His opponent, James Kolbaki, is a big fat guy like me. His rating was 1860. And he looks like a cartoon character. He looks like an 1860 banker. He loves the annual Chugwater, Wyoming chili cook-off. And James loves chess history. We are finally ready to proceed with the game, the Larimar of Laramie. This was played in the 2006 Wyoming Open in Laramie County Community College. Jim had invented a gambit that he sprung on Chris. He later found out that it already had a name, and it was not his invention. And Jim is trying to transpose into the old Greco game of 1620 that I showed you. White is going after the rook. Black counterattacks with his queen. And this position, believe it or not, is equal. If we look at the position after 3f4, you might be surprised to learn that 769 games have already been played with this position, beginning in 1922. In 1980, a postal player named Kucharkowski played at least 60 games with this, with black and white. In 1994, he even played in a theme tournament. Let's look at some possible third move replies for black. We're not going to do a giant analysis of this, but just to give you a feel for this line. Knight h6 was played 13 times. After pawn takes pawn, knight g4, c4. It looks like black is just aiming for the e5 pawn, but actually he has another idea. Knight e3, queen b3, queen h4 check, and now he's hitting both rooks. White can only protect one of them. And black is up the exchange for nothing. And the great Kucharkowski won this position. Strangely enough, James Kolbaki, the white player in our main game, also reached this exact position in 1982, 24 years before his game with Chris Peterson. Besides knight h6, let's look at some other third move alternatives. The most popular by far is d6, played 269 times. Kucharkowski scored 11 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses with d6. And it was played in the original game and scared white off of the whole variation for almost half a century. d5, just ignoring the e5 pawn, was played 20 times. Knight f6 was played 40 times, and the first person to have to face that was none other than our own James Kolbaki. Knight e7, just developing, was played a dozen times. Queen h4 check, which I don't see the point of, was played 4 times. And f6, trying to blunt this diagonal, was played 32 times. Let's get to the move that Chris actually played. Knight c6, one of the better moves. Kucharkowski played e4 and got a draw. And he also played knight f3 and won 3 games to 0. Black does have good moves here. f6, knight f6, knight h6, d6, and d5, to name a few. Kolbaki played pawn takes pawn here. Chris likes to sack pawns for development. After pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, knight f3. Chris is way ahead in development, and he hasn't even sacrificed any material, so Chris is very happy. Okay, after 6 moves, Kolbaki is way behind in development. He's hardly moved any pieces. So he tried to get castle with g3. Now, get ready for the strangest reason you'll ever hear to make a chess move in your life. Chris was playing on my plastic roll-up chessboard, which has signatures of grandmasters like Luke Van Weely, Belyaski, and Nakamura on it. I also have girlfriend signatures. I have different ratings, shapes, sizes. Everyone has signed my chessboard. By some weird fluke, Chris had signed my board on G2, and he did not want Jim to deface, insult, diss, or smudge his signature. So he played knight g4. The idea is if Jim occupies Chris's square, knight e3, queen c1, knight g2 check, king f1, knight e3 check, pawn takes knight, queen g5. And if you'll notice the pawn structure, white's is a complete mess and black's is beautifully connected. White has 4 pawn islands and Chris has 2, plus more pieces developed. So Chris would have a huge advantage in this position.